Is the British countryside a racist colonial white space? It's a claim by the Wildlife and Countryside Link, a group with members from the WWF, RSPCA and National Trust. Lots of charities are members of this umbrella group, and this report says that racist colonial legacies continue to frame nature in the UK as a white space, labelling people of colour out of place.
Well, joining us now is entrepreneur and commentator Joanna Jarju. Joanna, thank you very much for joining us. Now, this seems to crop up quite a bit, the idea that the British countryside is somehow racist. As a black woman yourself, do you feel uncomfortable in the British countryside?
Well, I mean, I'm a black woman that's brought up in Yorkshire, and I can say that, you know, growing up and being the only black kid in my primary school and growing up in an area like this, I have experienced racism, and I think that it's completely viable for this report to say so if there's evidence. You know, this isn't the type of thing that they just pluck out of thin air. This is basically different institutions that have grouped together and come up with this result, and I think that it's something that we should listen to. I think it's quite interesting, actually, that nowadays in Britain, it's more offensive to be called racist than what it is to actually be racist. So I think that all we can do is actually take learning lessons from this and realise that if these organisations are saying that it's a problem, then it's actually derived from some form of evidence, and we should listen to it.
Joanna, I think you make a really important point there. If there is evidence of discrimination, and clearly there are pockets of racism in the country, that is something that needs to be stamped out, no doubt, and highlighted. But is there a difference there between saying that there are individuals who might have racist attitudes and saying the countryside as itself is a racist thing?
Well, I don't think that they're saying that the countryside is a racist thing. I think that what they're saying is that communities that tend to be in these rural areas aren't as welcoming to ethnic minorities. And I think that that's actually quite realistic. If you think about these areas that maybe are predominantly white, you know, compared to other locations within the UK, then you can imagine that maybe they don't tend to see people who are black and brown come into their area. And there might be an air of suspicion.
But Joanna, I get that, but there are areas of the country that are predominantly ethnic minority, you know? So would you say the same thing about those areas, that they're not welcoming to white people? The report says that the country's green spaces are governed by white British cultural values. What does that mean?
I think white British cultural values means that when you look around and when you go on a hike, you expect to just see white people. And I think that in these rural areas, sometimes racism is founded on just thinking that somebody's a bit suspicious, you know, fear of the other. And I think that when you have these, you know, Middle England kind of pockets of society...
Joanna, can you see how this might be quite hurtful to people? It does appear to be a slur on the millions of British people who live in the countryside and don't have an ounce of racism in their body.
Well, I think that in that instance, you know, if somebody isn't racist, then obviously they can live with that and they know that they're not racist in their personal life. But I think that to kind of diminish the fact that maybe there is a majority of people who aren't particularly welcoming to ethnic minorities that come into their area, I think that's completely viable. You always have kind of conversations of people who are saying, you know, I live in my little village and now, you know, when I get on a bus or when I get on a train, there's different languages being spoken. People don't even like to see people who are have a different colour or are speaking a different language because they almost feel like it's an invasion. And I think that some of the language when it comes to migrants that we have in this country at the moment doesn't help. So when people feel as if they're in their small pocket of a, you know, safe space and they don't want anybody to come and quote unquote disrupt that, then you can imagine that the people are quite unwelcome in areas.
Maybe what we should do is smash those safe spaces, encourage everyone to go to the countryside and stop
not
calling
call it a racist place.
And encourage more people of colour to visit these spaces, perhaps. I'm afraid we have run out of time here, Joanna Jarju. Thank you so much for putting your case across. Really appreciate it.